Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the final day of Pogchamps 3. It's been 2 weeks of growth arcs and heartbreak and crazy checkmates and blunders and brilliancies, but it's down to 4 people. In the consolation bracket finals, we have Michelle Khare taking on Neeko, and in the final of the champions bracket, we've got Sardoche and we've got Rainn Wilson. We're going to start with Neeko and Michelle Khare, and if you'd like to jump ahead, watch the champions bracket, you're more than welcome, but the games are awesome, all decisive, no draws, that's how we like it. Let's just go. Neeko starts out with knight to c3. Michelle admittedly had been mostly preparing for Neeko's f4, but we get knight to c3. Michelle doesn't do anything crazy, takes control of the center with 2 pawns, and actually now they transpose back to a 2 knights French defense. But all that aside, Neeko plays d3, bishop d6, and already there is an opportunity for white. Now beginners, listen up. You guys are all really bad with things going on in the center of the board. Just because it's the opening doesn't mean you have to lazily develop your pieces. There's actually moments where central pawn forks like this can occur, okay? Both players don't take care of that, and now Neeko opens the center. Now, to her credit, she then castles, because, you know, if she had waited another move, she would have gotten hit with this. This is why you need to get your king out of the middle of the board, otherwise the enemy rook is going to get to you. So she castles, and Michelle just attacks the knight. She takes control of the center. She sees that central pawn push. Knight to e4. Now we have a trade, and rook to e8. Obviously not a bad move at all, and now rook to e1, defending the pawn. So far, so good. Very good chess thus far. Knight to d7, not the best move. At this point, Michelle spent about 2 minutes thinking, and she overthought the position. She should just play what is natural. What is natural? You haven't developed your knight yet, so just put it in the center, right? But sometimes when we overthink, that's when that doubt creeps up. We're like, maybe I want to, like, move my knight. Like, just be natural. Don't spend too much time, because Neeko is a fast player. And here, Neeko doesn't even develop a piece. She finds a pawn break, pawn to c3, very tricky, taking advantage of the fact that the knight has now blockaded the queen from defending the bishop. So if the pawn had been taken, you would have lost the bishop. So Michelle plays knight here. Now, knight takes e5. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, you take with the bishop. You have to take with the bishop. Because the truth is that if you take with the rook, which is what Michelle did, now the rook is just the target. And then when the rook backs up, now white plays e5. It's a great move, e5. Just bulldozing is what I just said, okay? Bulldozing down the center here. Bishop to c7, and now we get cd4, cd4. I would immediately take advantage of this c file is what I would do. Neeko plays bishop f1. I guess Neeko's idea was to go here. That's what she wanted, but Michelle played queen to d5. Look at that, by the way. Can we just get a little bit of love for this maneuver? Like, are you kidding me? Backwards bishop reroute at 807? Every single 800 in the chat needs to stop watching this recap and then go look in the mirror and really ask themselves, would they find a backwards bishop reroute? I don't think so. Queen d5, now rook c1, that targets the bishop. Michelle plays queen back to d7. Now, at this point, I would have liked to see bishop to c4, but Neeko expands with the pawns. I mean, bishop c4 is possible. Michelle starts lining up some bad things on this diagonal. Neeko just doesn't even wait for anything to happen. Now we get a5, we get b5, and, well, queen goes back to d5, abandoning this bishop. But Neeko misses it. Neeko plays bishop to e2. She was worried about this, but it's the concept of continuity. The queen used to guard the bishop, and then after rook d8, we get bishop to c4. So finally, Neeko goes, wait a minute, I don't have to guard this because it's protected. Michelle misses that, and then when the dust settles, all of a sudden, white's looking around going, all right, where can my other 3? Oh, bang. And now white is up a rook, but it's not over. d3. This pawn's about to get down here. Now, the best move for white is unquestionably just bishop back to d2. Don't let the pawn come close, right? Right? And then swarm it with the rooks. But Neeko plays rook to b7. And Michelle continues with d2. You say, Levy, wait a minute. I know. Neeko forgot about the backwards diagonal. Bishop takes b7, and all of a sudden, black is completely in this game, if not playing for a win. But Michelle plays d2. Also not a bad move. Even if you miss this. Because at this point, what you need to do is go for the king. And the king has to, ironically, not run to the corner where it's normally safer. Actually, king to h1 hangs mate in 1. Very famous checkmate sequence where the rook can go anywhere, but only one move wins. Rook g3, preventing the king from getting back, and the bishop just hits the king. Very famous. So she had to go there, and Neeko should have gone to f1, but Michelle starts going for the pawns, and Neeko gives this check, and this is Michelle's last moment. The pawn is trying to go down the board. Get in front of it. Take that last stand with the king like, hey, I know I'm not supposed to be involved in this battle. I'm a wimp. All those other pieces got special powers. I'm just a loser that only goes one square, but I'm going to stop this. You stand right in front of that freight train and, you try to take a hit for the team. And Michelle goes here, and once the pawn gets in, it's one complaint here. Don't make moves that are not checks when you have such a massive advantage of material, okay? Because again, rook g2 could have been a problem. You can still hang mate in a position where you're down 11 points. So when you're up so much material, don't make lazy moves. You just go for the check. Always be looking for some sort of check to at least win you some material, get as close as possible. But Neeko still finds the immediate checkmate, and she takes a 1-0 lead. We go to game 2. Michelle's got the white pieces. She starts out with a London g6. Neeko, who usually kind of does stuff all over the place in the opening, just plays a King's Indian defense. I don't know who taught her the King's Indian defense, but God bless them. That's a fantastic opening. And the thing is, when white doesn't challenge the King's Indian, because normally if you're a London player and you see the King's Indian coming, I always say just go long. Just castle queenside. Queen and bishop, go trade that bishop off and attack with a pawn storm. I don't recommend same-side castling for the white side of a London in a King's Indian. I don't like it because it's really difficult to attack, and the plans are a lot less clear. And we already see how early on Neeko gets a totally normal-looking position. Michelle plays pawn takes. Neeko takes back with the knight, not the queen. Knight now hits this. Knight is threatening this. Bishop to e4. Nice move from Michelle, applying some pressure here through the diagonal. But now bishop b7, everything is guarded. Queen c4, and she chops off the bishop. Michelle takes there, takes, and rook c8. Nice move, because she wanted to take, but she saw this. See, Neeko's not thinking 1, 2, 3, I'm so smart. She's thinking 1, uh-oh, I can't do that. So rook c8, now we get rook c1, and now she takes on d4. I would have liked to see pawn takes instead of bishop takes, but all good. And now she plays rook e8, stabilizing b4. She immediately responds with b5. She does not want to allow b4, b5. And here, ladies and gentlemen, tragedy strikes. Michelle overlooks the fact that this wasn't just a blockade of her plan. It was an attack on her queen. And her excellent run of chess at this point took a hit, and the queen went down. The best thing for white to have been able to, to do here, maybe go queen c5 looking for this. Maybe do what the king should have done last game, just back up, back up and stop the pawn. But listen, Neeko hasn't made a blunder in 20 moves. When your opponents don't even make an inaccuracy in the first 20 moves of the game, it's going to be tough to beat them. I mean, literally, it's like GM level play. I mean, everything she's done at this point is something that I would have done. I mean, she played out of her mind in this last game, and the way she converts this, she just pawn breaks, activates her queen, and here she wins the knight, and right here she finds this nice final idea. Right here, she's up a lot of material, queen, rook, she sacks. She gets the 2 rooks, and now is where the 807 is sprinkled in. She's got a corner mate. It's actually kind of funny. She's got the rook and the bishop mate. She misses it, but she chops down all the defenses, and she makes the queen, and she wins the game. And again, by the way, if I can just complain about one more thing, it wasn't a check. She didn't check, right? She saw that this was the only pawn move, but queen e3. Just small things that'll make you excellent long term, but, I mean, can we complain really about this? I mean, Neeko playing out of her mind in this second game. Anyone's going to be tough to beat when they play this well, so congratulations to her. She wins 2-0. Michelle the runner-up, and Neeko is the consolation bracket champion. And now we move on to our main event of the evening between Rainn Wilson and Sardoche. And I mean, what more to say? I got to take a breath because I'm going to be talking like a mile a minute. All right, give me a second. Nothing beats ice cold water. Or beer, depending on the occasion. e4, c5, knight f3, and Sardoche, who normally plays the Sicilian defense, busts out e6 because he knows that b3 is coming. Rainn likes to play this, so Sardoche plays knight c6 and now d5. This is a very good way to play against the b3 Sicilian. But in many of these variations, white needs to know to put the bishop on b5. That is the only way to get an advantage. You got to go chop chop, bishop b5, long castle, and you play with this bishop. And at some point, you have to go d4 because otherwise black goes d4. So Rainn Wilson makes a bad positional mistake. He blocks his own bishop, right? But Sardoche has the issue here of not having a lot of experience playing in closed positions. Rainn plays c3 looking for this, and at this point, Sardoche has to like maneuver the knight to f5 and try to play d4 because then he activates his bishop. By the way, even d4 at this point is not the world's worst move. After pawn takes, your bishop is super strong because you got the only light squared bishop on the board. But Sardoche allows the position to get closed. And this is another tough example. CD4 is not a bad move, but keep the tension. Keep the tension. Play b6. Keep the tension between the pawns. Trade at a later moment. Just try to keep the tension a little bit. Because what ends up happening is he puts his bishop on a square which isn't very good. He should probably go bishop to e7, otherwise his bishop's just going to be a target. Oh, look, I just said that. Now he goes back to a5, but that's not where his bishop belongs. Now his bishop is completely out of the game. He has to stay patient and wait for his moment, then activate his pieces with the break f6. Now we get rook e1, we get castles, and Rainn Wilson plays knight to d2, just trying to finish his development. But Sardoche is right on time. a5, he says, I don't want a passive bishop. Pawn break to activate the position, and now we get knight b3, we get ab4, ab4. And again at this point, bishop to a4 is a wonderful move, but it's responded to by another wonderful move. He just gets out of the pin, defending this, and he wants to maybe put his rook on this file, right? Queen goes up, targets the knight, rook is coming this way. This position is semi-open. Both sides have 6 pawns, and the action is really going to happen in the next like 10 to 15 moves on this area because g4 is really the only way to make progress with pawns on that side, or for black it's to play g5, g4 themselves. f6 you're not going to want to play with black because when I take, I activate my rook. So watch, queen c4, excellent move, just a fantastic move, offering a trade of queens. Because if you take, then I take, I hit your knight, right? So we get knight c5, defending the queen, and if you play bishop takes knight, removing the guard, I'm going to take your queen first. That's the difference at 1300, 14, 1500, than an 8, 700. You know, they tunnel on one piece, whereas these guys see how all the pieces are interacting. So queen d3, knight d3, and now g5, Sardoche gets wild. I would have liked to see him stay focused. Bishop b5. Not a single one of these dumb horses is ever going to fight your pointed hat soldier on b5. No one. They're not going to fight him. Where's this knight even going to go? If it goes back to c5, all right, defend your b7 pawn, and then find a way to chip away at the position, right? But knight c5 is also, I mean, the game's not over, all right? But the bishop on b5 is going to be very good. The problem is he plays g5. Now Rainn Wilson strikes back with g4. Well, you can't take this. Can't take this because d4 is hanging, right? So it's a wing attack countered by a wing attack, and now he has to go back, and Rainn Wilson calls his bluff. The problem in chess is that when you bluff, knight c5, look at that, just blocking the bishop's vision. When you bluff in chess, it could really backfire. So now that this bishop has been removed, what do we have? We have white up a pawn, opposite colored bishops, and white has a space advantage. So we get knight to b4, rook to e2, knight jumps into c2. The problem is that when you attack a piece, you've got to think where it's going to go. This guards this. So all I got to do is take. 9 times out of 10, knight and bishop are better than the rook. 9 times out of 10. When you have a knight and bishop versus a rook, you want to try to maybe trade a rook, protect your king at all costs, and then coordinate your pieces and go after the weakness. So watch what happens. We get a rook trade, and Sardoche plays rook c4. At this point with white, you gotta go, that's the only escape square. If I go here, it's over. I bring it back, and it's trapped. Rainn brings it back and allows the rook to escape, and starts bringing up his own pawns. But Rainn's gotta play on this side of the board. Try to get to the b7 pawn. Focus on that side, and what he has to do on this side is not allow the king in. How's the king gonna get in? h5. It's asking all of these constructive questions. Well, you can't take or push, because then the king goes here. So this has to stay here. How is this gonna stay here if h5 happens? h3 is the way to go. You've got to play like this. But he plays h4, and black goes h5, and now you're not gonna stop it. Now we get knight b. Whoa, 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 whoa! What? Whoa, whoa, whoa! Oh my goodness! What? Just both these guys completely blanked about pawn takes g4. The nerves, I don't know, something. But now we get rook h1 and the king is coming in. But white is stabilizing. And here, if Rainn again had focused on the weaknesses, knight b5, knight d6, the king can hug the bishop. And the king is safe. The king can hug the bishop. The king's fine. Knight d6, go take some pawns. But what ultimately ends up happening, Sardoche, with low time and high nerves, blunders his rook. And the last blunder is the decisive one. At this point, Rainn Wilson needs to take the pawns, make a queen, and give a mate. What is the only thing he has to not do? Stalemate. And what is the one thing that he does? No, he doesn't stalemate. He wins the pawns, and then he promotes. He locks the king down. He promotes his queen. Queen to d5. Only legal move by Sardoche to a7. And Rainn Wilson strikes first. 1-0 for Rainn Wilson. We go to game number 2. Now Sardoche got white. He's got to win this game or Pogchamps is over. He begins with d4. And again, you know a guy is going to play King's Indian and you play the London. What do you have to do? Got to go here. You got to go here. If you're a London player, you should have a massive score against the King's Indian defense. I'm a big believer in that. You got to attack. But Sardoche plays it in a take the entire center way. And Rainn plays it in a whatever the heck this is. A double fianchetto, right? Very non-confrontational approach. But the problem with this setup is that it's like fighting at heavyweight, right? You throw a punch and you miss, you're going to get knocked out. See, for example, the Derek Lewis fight versus Curtis Blades. But Queen e3 gets played in this game, defending the center, Queen d7, and now a3. a3 is not a move you want to play. Just castle. Just go long, right? Because now Sardoche plays b4, and here, rook f8 gets played, b5, knight a5, e5. But if we back up just for a moment after b4, at this point, Rainn Wilson has the perfect opportunity to create a central pawn break, which wins the game. I'm not even joking, it straight up wins. Why? It hits 2. If you take, I hit your bishop, and I hit this. And that is the danger of these setups for black. They're so prickly. One wrong move, bam, you get caught. That's it. Knocked out, 6-month medical suspension. I mean, it's over. And if you don't take, then you get taken. So there's nothing you can do. You have no choice. You either take or you get taken. Either way, you lose material. But Rainn misses it, plays slowly, and Sardoche is able to start kind of putting the pressure on, but still it's a very dangerous position. f5, he takes on d6, takes, and now he plays rook to d1. I need him to get his king out. I don't know what he's waiting for. Get the king out of the middle. Knight b3 gets played. Bishop, knight. And now, as luck would have it, he didn't realize that this pawn was hanging. He forgot that in this position, he's guarding this. So Sardoche castles at the wrong moment, hangs his c4 pawn, and has to move his queen. And now the knight takes a second pawn. At this point, Sardoche was really tilted. He was very upset. Very visibly distraught on camera. Not happy. But that is the danger of a position where you castle on opposite sides. The more pawns you take from your opponent, the more openings you make to your king. And all of a sudden, the knight is stuck. And bishop e6 is threatening a queen loss. So knight to d5. Now Sardoche takes the right way. What do you take with here? Yes. Don't take with the bishop. Unless there's a good reason to give away a bishop for a knight. Don't do it. Take. And now the bishop is making a tough decision. Do you take? No. Rook c1. King b8. And here, after takes, Sardoche finds the best move. The only move. Everything else is bad. What is that move? I'm going to ask you. You know it? It's rook to c6. I don't know how to describe this much more than it's an infiltration move coordinating upon a weakness and noticing that you're guarded. Not one of these wimpy queen moves attacking the knight, rook c6. The knight comes back to c4 and Sardoche here plays a beautiful idea, rook c1, activating the one piece that hasn't gotten involved because after rook c8, dynamite strikes. Rook takes c4. And the whole point is that if you take, it's not bishop takes. No. You think I take the pawn and it's check. I'm so smart. Now you lose. No. It's rook takes, because you threaten the queen, and anywhere the rook moves, it's going to be check. So anywhere the queen moves, you're going to be able to win it. Because queen b5 is a double check with the bishop and the rook. Queen to e8 is a check and you win the queen. So you have to stay patient. Don't take things just because it's check. And in the game, Rainn Wilson takes the rook anyway, and ultimately Sardoche finds a way to infiltrate, win the queen, and queen e5, picking up the rook. The game lasted a short while. He picked up all the pawns, and as the Frenchman would, he ended the game with en passant and queen b7. Chef's kiss. Allez, allez, allez. It is 1-1, and ladies and gentlemen, we have a 5-minute blitz game to determine the winner of Pogchamps 3. Here we go. We got Rainn Wilson with the white pieces, Sardoche with the black pieces. We already know what we're going to get. The same opening as game number, what was it? 1. ED, ED, bishop to e2. This time Rainn Wilson keeps it open. Knight f6 and castles. He's got to go for the move d4. That's the only way. He's got to go for the move d4. He's got to go for the move d4. He's got to go. Okay, finally he does it. Now, you have a dark squared bishop. What do you need to do to the dark squared bishop diagonal? At this point, you don't even have to think about it. Snap take. Because if he takes, you can move this knight. You could drop it back and open up your lines, and then ultimately you can block up the center, but in the future you will activate the bishop. Rainn Wilson delays for a move, hoping for pawn takes pawn, and Sardoche plays the top engine move, locking the door on the center. That bishop is never going to see the light of day again. But Rainn Wilson at this point says, it's a closed position. Who excels in closed positions? Le cheval. I hope that's how you say it. Knight f4. Knight f4. I don't know why Rainn Wilson is speaking French in this example, but it's fine. And then Rainn Wilson has to finish the knight journey. Now he plays queen d2, defending his knight. He's got to finish the knight journey. He plays queen to d2, which is a blunder because Sardoche can play knight to e4, hitting his queen. Sardoche plays queen c7. Now we get knight to e5, knight to e4, queen e3. And once again, Sardoche plays the one move to give him an advantage. And that move is so tough to see amongst all of this chaos. But it's the move f6. And that is an example that if you listen to Ben Feingold never play f6, you'll never find these beautiful moves, right? So knight takes c6, but now Sardoche, he snap takes back. And I get it, it's a blitz game. You don't have to snap take back. You can play bishop takes knight because you attack the queen, this is not going anywhere, and bishop 2h2 isn't coming. But he takes back, and now in this position, he reloads the cannon on the knight on f4. He plays queen to c7, but the concept of continuity escapes him, and knight takes d5, and all of a sudden, despite Sardoche having 2.5 minutes to about 1 minute for Rainn Wilson, he has blundered. Not only has he blundered, it is a fatal error because the queen is hanging and the knight is being attacked by two different pieces. Look how bad this can get. If Sardoche plays queen to f7 counterattacking, I play rook takes e4. If rook takes, queen takes, the knight is guarded. And if you take like this, I take the rook and it's discovered attack on your queen, which will come with a check. And then I will take your bishop and I'm completely winning, and I can win that with a minute on my clock. So what does Sardoche do when he realizes he blunders? He plays bishop to h2 check. And rather than coming closer to the bishop, a calm, quiet move to the corner, where now there's a queen hanging, there is a bishop hanging, there is a knight hanging, the whole house collapses. Rainn Wilson brings the king to the middle of the board. And knight to d2 is not just a fork of the king and the queen. Knight to d2 is mate. Mate in one, blundered in a time trouble tense situation by Rainn Wilson shortly after a game-changing blunder by Sardoche, and Sardoche the Frenchman defeats Rainn Wilson in the 5-minute blitz match, and he wins Pogchamps 3. What more to say? What an epic 2-week journey. We've seen the growth of people from complete beginners to actually very, very formidable opponents for anybody that they can go play against. Every single player has expressed an interest to continue the game, to continue grinding. Some of them will be back for the Twitch Rivals event, which is just starting in a couple of days. And the biggest thing is that chess.com did this event with a charity initiative. Any donations that came through over the course of 2 weeks would be matched. At the end of the day, chess.com will be donating $100,000 to charity, and many of those percentages of the winnings of the players, not themselves, will go to charity, although many of them have committed to charities as well. But many charities, every single player chose a charity around the world, 16 charities, and we will be making donations to them. So what a culmination, my friends. What a way to end February. Another amazing just way that so many millions of fans from all sorts of different creators got brought together. And Pogchamps 3 for now, signing off, and we'll see you in the 4th edition.